Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for the 23rd annual Groundhog Grappler. This footage and tournament brought to you by the judges. Huge thank you to David Swain and Trey Thornton, or James Thornton, depending on which one you would prefer to hear. Because without them, this footage would not be possible. We are here at the Pelahatchie Shore Park, aka the Res, here in Brandon, Mississippi. Starting off on hole 1. Huge thank you to Kyle Gray for providing this drone footage. Came in clutch. Unfortunately, multiple pin placements, but only one pin per drone footage. So here on hole 1, OB road to the left, very thick woods to the right, slightly raised pin. So little bitty bit of danger to miss this putt, but all of our players pretty dang professional, so hopefully that's not going to come into effect. Up first, Calvin Pettigrew, I don't know, Calvin. Throwing a nice little hyzer line there. Should be pretty parked. Up next, Tyler Williams. This is his foray into the MPO division, previously playing MA1, so very happy and very honored to be able to film his first professional round. Also opting for the nice high hyzer over the road. Getting a nice skip there toward the basket. Here we have Christian Camp, the champion of the Rowley Winter Classic that we filmed a couple months ago now. And of course my cat in the background having an aneurysm. Christian, a little bit of an early release here, ending up in a great position for the short left pin, but not in a great position for this pin. Kyle Gray up next. Also very inside, much like Christian's. Probably a good tree, to be honest, because if you skip further left, it's much thicker and much harder to get up and down. And rounding out our card is Mark Martin, old Marky Mark. I must also mention the conditions were very cold and very muddy due to torrential downpour all week. This ended up in a good spot, I guess. It was hard to follow on camera as you saw it. The disc basically disappeared. Here we get to Kyle. Just laying up, not in a position to attack. You see all these trees in his way. Christian in a very similar line, but he's got a bit more of an open look. Almost catching some chains, but we'll have a pretty easy par save there. Here we got Mark, ended up a little bit short and early, yeah. Also laying up, just in the same position Kyle was, just a little further up. Calvin, not quite as parked as you would like to be. Obviously, tap in is what you want, but a little bit shorter than what I thought he would, where I thought he was, but still in a good position to get a look at the basket. And making a nice birdie putt there. Here we have Tyler with his drive. Good for his birdie as well. Should expect to see the rest of our card cleaning up their pars. Also, Tyler is a twin. He and his brother Taylor, both extremely talented disc golfers. Been tearing it up here for at least a year. I don't know. I haven't been playing that long, but moving on to hole 2. Hole 2, par 4, 560 feet. This is probably the hardest hole on the course in any pin placement. This pin placement is new as of late last year. So this drone footage is taking us to the hard par 3 position, but The new par 4 position is further to the right in an open field, as we'll see, hopefully. Calvin up first. OB road far to the right. No OB to the left, and no OB long, aside from the road. Calvin, very unfortunate to kick OB off of the tee. This is just a hard hole. I mean, you see how many trees there are, and you see how tiny the fairway is to get through. Ooh. Tyler also hitting very early. Not going OB, but the way that the trees work on this hole is you may as well be OB if you don't get past the first couple walls of trees. Christian taking his sweet time. Come on, man. Don't you know we've got stuff to watch? Also thwacking a tree really solidly and ending up toward the right. Not OB, thankfully.
Where you're at now.
Kyle getting a great line on this, ending up in the perfect spot. Right up next to the road. You can't see it, but he is in a great position. And good old Marky Mark. It's a little bit of late flip there.
Hey, good tree, good tree, good tree.
Ended up in a pretty good spot. Not a great birdie spot, but should be able to get up and down at least. Here we go. Have Tyler. Whack. He'll end up over close to the silver pin. Christian. He spent a couple seconds lining up that huge Anheuser forehand, and I was like, ooh, this will be exciting, but unfortunately decides to go with the safer play. And he'll end up in a pretty decent spot. He landed where you want your drive to land. So Tyler just not getting any love, having a tree whack him almost as far back as he threw. Calvin in a great position to attack despite going OB. He'll end up in a good spot. Potential to save the 4 there. It's not that cold. Christian was baiting. Tyler just laying up, not going for anything big. Mark Martin for his drive, or from his drive, excuse me. That is really unfortunate. And just after that, I'm like, at least you didn't spend like 30 minutes deciding to do that. Kyle from his drive, not OB, deciding to go for a very safe layup. Not capitalizing, just playing smart golf there. Here we have Christian. And this is for 3. Just throwing it a little too low. I'll have a look at the basket, but not a great one. Here's Mark. I believe this is for his 3 as well. And leaving that really long, just not throwing, giving it enough height. Here we have Tyler for his 4? I think this is for 5 actually. And throwing it really wide. It was pretty cold, so I would blame that on the performance here. Christian trying to throw it in like he did on hole 1 at Raleigh Winter Classic, or Raleigh Christmas Classic, one of the two. Here we have Mark juicing this one, ending up with a tester past the basket. Kyle for his 3. Oh, giving it an honest run. You know he's disappointed with how good his drive was and how terrible his approach shot was. Oh my gosh, dude. You hate to see it. Here we have the squeaky chair. I mean Calvin. Oh. Just a bit of a misrelease there on that putt. Never had the height and very wide. Whoa. Tyler, really unfortunate to not make that. Still, only hole 2. Plenty of golf left to play. Plenty of holes to attack. Mark making good on that putt. Saving the bogey. Calvin good on his putt. Just want to give a shout out to Mason McKay, the only person in round 1 to get the birdie on hole 2. A big congratulations to you, my friend. Kyle making sure it was okay to move that log from where his disc landed. And then making Calvin go all the way back to remove his putter. What a jerk. Kyle taking the 4 there to move up on the box by not bogeying. Moving on to hole 3, par 3, 235 feet. In this position, it is just dead straight from the tee box behind this forked tree that we're going to the right of right now. And we've got Kyle Gray up first. Well, technically the OB road far to the left, but you'd need to really crush it to get out that far. So.
Oh my god! Let's go!
Kyle splitting this tree, splitting it 3 ways, because that is 2 main trunks and then a limb coming off of one of the main trunks, missing everything, ending up in a good spot for the 2. Calvin, unfortunately, tried to follow his line, but getting a little bit too low. Christian to follow that. I think it should be a stroke off for getting the field goal like that.
Good shot. Good shot.
Getting a late flip there. He'll end up in a good spot. Nice close up there as well. Mark throwing this really high. I don't think the forehand is the line on this hole. I think it just doesn't finish the way you would like. Tyler, the unfortunate triple bogey on the last hole, bring up the rear.
Yes. Good shot.
Getting just around it with that nice late flip. Ending up in a great spot for the 2. Here we have Calvin from where he landed. Probably 80 feet short. Giving it a decent run to it, but still landing a bit short. Mark Martin just a little bit closer. Giving it a good run, just coming up a little bit short. Here we have Tyler. I thought he landed closer than this, but my memory fails me. But he's good for the 2. Nice bounce back from that unfortunate hole 2 result. Here we go, Kyle. Ooh, missing left side there. Great height, but just a little too wide. Here we have Christian Camp from his drive. Christian and Calvin both took their time on their putts, and not getting the result he would like here for the time it took. Tapping in pair of threes, and then we move on to hole 4. And we move on to hole 4, par 3, 371 feet. No OB to speak of. Just a really simple backhand hyzer shot. This is the short and right position. We are further up and to the left. But just a simple stock backhand hyzer, nothing to worry about. No big deal. Tyler up first. And me failing to get any of the shot on camera except where it landed. Moving to a better position. Here we got Kyle Gray throwing his Halo Destroyer. Getting a pretty decent spot there. You see it finished a little to the left there. He'll end up in the opening out there, where you typically want to land. Here we've got Calvin. Getting a nice bit of flip here. He'll also end up in that nice open spot out there. This hole's really hard to attack for the birdie. You've got to really smash something out there. I would definitely classify this as a bonus birdie hole. Calvin just wasting all our time. Come on, man. We're trying to get a tournament run here. Calvin, sponsored this year by Discmania and Between the Pines. And missing everything and getting out into the opening as well. And Marky Mark. If you hear some stuff in the background, that's probably me peeling the stickers off my discs. I got a shipment in, and so I'm excitedly fondling them. Ooh, Mark releasing way to the right and getting totally knocked down by that cedar tree. He will end up in a very tough spot to get it up and down. And throwing that a little bit too high for the low ceiling and getting stopped by the other tree. Here he is again. He just wants to be on camera a lot. Giving that a great run, flash in the basket. Here we have Kyle's drive. Out in this nice big open spot. Easy up and down, and a little bit of a run too. I mean, unless you're Kyle, and then it's just a difficult up and down and a terrible run all at the same time. Here we've got Calvin. Sponsored by Innova. He doesn't just wear the merch. Giving this a pretty decent run. And here we've got Christian Camp with the best look, CTP. Also throwing it a bit wide. Want to shout out my good friend Michael Stamey, the only 2 of round 1 on this hole. Wish we could have seen that. I imagine he was parked. scenes action there, me moving the camera, because I forgot to cut this out. But it's fine, we're just gonna leave it as is and act like we planned it the whole time. We'll pretend like it's an inside look at filming a disc golf tournament. You just don't see the 5 minutes every hole of the camera just panning up and shaking. Martin, good. Good there. Or was that Martin? I can't tell. Everybody's wearing the same color clothes. Christian, good for his 3. Not good for taking the disc out of the basket, but hey, these things happen. Oh, that must have been Calvin up first, so that was Tyler good for his 3, Martin making his 4, and Kyle making his 3. On to hole 5, par 3, 374 feet. The drone kind of taking us the little bit of the turnover line to get there. You see the basket here nestled between these 2 trees. OB road far to the left, OB fence far to the right. If you turn it over a little bit too much on your backhand, then you do have the risk of going OB. Tyler getting a great line on this. Maybe a little bit high, that's going to cut off some of the distance, but he'll end up in a pretty decent spot. Good look at the basket, at least. Here's Kyle up now. Going a really, really risky gap there. I don't know if it was quite the line he was looking for, but he'll end up with a pretty decent look at the basket as well. Our first forehand. Whack! Right into the tree. He will get over the fence, but not what you would prefer. There's a lot of gaps on this hole, but along with those gaps, there's a lot of trees to hit. Christian also opting for the forehand. I think it's the best play on this hole if you've got it, to throw the forehand, because it'll go along with the hill, skip down toward the basket, just like this, and end up in a beautiful spot. I think if you throw the backhand turnover, it's the shot that I throw because I don't have that forehand. But if I had the forehand, I would throw it, without a doubt. And Mark flexing this out really wide. That's probably about 374 foot on a forehand. Unfortunately, it's really, really far to the left of the pin. Here's where Calvin ended up.
It's not OB or anything.
Over the fence technically, but he can't move his disc enough to get footing on the opposite side, so has to throw from the other side of the fence anyway. This one not quite as far as you'd like to be, but from the position he was in, I would say that was pretty dang good. Here we have Mark with his look at the basket. If you can just channel that forehand into other holes, you'll be golden. My goodness, look at that. This is probably only 10 feet short of being pin high. That is a smash. Tyler just laying it up. That's what I want to say, because I don't know if he was running it, and it doesn't look like a run, so we'll say it was a layup. Here's Calvin from well outside, and he's good for it. What a great putt. Kyle from his drive, trying to backboard it in. Christian from his drive. Just a little bit low. I think those were out of order, because Christian went and then Kyle went. Anyway, Kyle good for his 3. Tyler looking to clean up his 3. Mark to follow. And Christian, of course, to tap that in. No bogeys, thankfully, but very attackable hole. I'm sure all our players very disappointed not to get the birdie on this one. Here we are, hole 6, par 4, 696 feet. Nice. We've just got this nice big open shot. OB road to the left, OB road to the right. And then as you get up closer into the basket, you have this OB road surrounding it. So the whole hole playing sort of like an island. But practically speaking, not. Tyler up first. Getting a pretty decent line on this. He'll end up in a good spot to get up and down. Here's Kyle. Wind kind of lifting this one and moving it to the right, and I didn't follow this at all because incompetence. Here's Calvin now, throwing really high, hitting that big pine tree, filtering through a little bit, so he'll be in a spot to attack, but not quite as far as you'd like. This is a very attackable hole. You've got this nice big wide open shot here. Let's see if Christian can show us how it's done. Kristen. Hey, Kristen. Getting a lot of flip on there. This hole kind of notorious for having a wind that's really hard to read. He'll end up in a great position here. Here we've got Mark Martin. It really looks like he's just kind of flinging the disc lightly, like whoop. But he can smash it out there. Here we have Calvin from where his drive landed after getting through that pine tree. That pine tree at about 250 or so feet down the fairway. Good little distance marker. And this one landed really wide of where he would have liked. Easy up and down, but not super runnable. The green here is pretty fast. And there's Tournament Central there, that gazebo in the back, or pavilion rather. That headwind causing the disc to lift up. Mark ending up a little bit short of where he'd like, but he can run that putt for sure. Here we have Kyle in an ideal position, I would say. Really opens up the forehand toward the green. He'll end up in a great spot. I don't know if you can hear that, but the ground is squelching, absolutely soaking wet. And Christian kind of throwing this one a little high, but he'll spike in. He'll have a runnable putt there. He was saying that how the more he moved, the less he trusted his footing, and so he probably should have just done standstill. Tyler trying to spike that one in there, Garrett Girthy style. Kyle from his position for the 3. Nope, just fluffed that one. Christian from a very similar position for the same score. Hopefully a different result. Hopefully for Christian. I'm sure Kyle would be much more than happy if if Christian just like launched this one. Oh man, you win OB, that sucks, man. Kyle sounds like Kermit. It's official. You heard it here first, folks. Christian making good on the 3. Mark in a pretty similar position. Unfortunately, getting big putted. Not able to clean up for the birdie there. Calvin just a little low in his birdie putt. Kyle cleaning up his par. And should expect to see the rest of our card do the same. Then we move on to hole 6B, or 6A, depending on which scorecard you read, I guess. On to hole A, or 6A, or 6B. I don't know. Every scorecard seems to be different. The tournament calls this hole A, so we'll call it hole A. Par 3, 306 feet. OB water to the left, OB road to the right, and OB about 20 or so feet past the basket. This hole is in play because hole 18, true hole 18 on this course, is under construction for the foreseeable future. So unfortunately, we have to remove one of our iconic holes and put in this. A temporary tee pad is in place here, which is much better than the mud that is usually here. Christian flexing this shot out, and he will end up right outside the circle for a decent look at the putt. Here we've got Tyler. Throwing a fantastic line toward the basket. Skipping just a little bit short. Not quite the ground play you would have liked. Probably threw a mid-range there. Here we go, Kyle throwing, I believe this is a pig. And that one was gliding really nicely to the left there. And did what pigs did and stuck. So didn't skip OB. So you've always got that to look forward to, not skipping OB. Here we've got Calvin. Now whacking a tree. He'll end up with a look at the basket there. Here we've got Mark Martin. He needs to get a hat that says Mark because he's got that Martin's shirt on, so he can be Mark Martins. He'll end up pretty far to the right with that forehand, but in a position to run the putt or layup, depending on how risky he's feeling. Kyle throwing this one really, really high with a really overstable disc. Not quite the line or disc choice that he would have preferred. Mark giving this little safe layup slash run. Here we have Calvin from his drive. For such an attackable hole, it's really surprising to see all our players struggling a bit. Ooh, leaving himself with a little tester of a comeback. Here we have Tyler from his drive. Oh, just a little too low. Just a half an inch. The disrespect. Kyle from similar distance to Tyler. Airball in this one. Will leave himself with a comebacker for bogey. Christian for his birdie. Just a little low. You can't keep blaming the weather, guys. Like, at some point you gotta start making some putts. Sheesh. Calvin with his little tester. Making good on that par comebacker. Kyle from probably only a couple inches closer. Thankfully not missing that bogey putt. Putting himself at 1 over. Rest of our players to clean up their pars. On to hole 7, par 3, 354 feet. The drone is kind of going to take us to the wrong pin location, but like I said before, we had only very limited time for this drone footage because the weather was not allowing us to fly. It was very windy. So Kyle taking us the really janky way to get to this par 4 position, but the par 3 position is not quite as long as this. Here we got Christian up first. So in this position, the road to the right is OB, and the fence to the left that you can see there is OB. And there's the basket, just down the line. But this is a very tricky hole to get to. The preferred play would probably be the backhand turnover, but forehand is also an excellent option if you've got it. Tyler getting a great line on that. That was just the perfect shot. In that par 4 position, if you can park this basket, you'd leave yourself in an excellent spot. That's what I love about the par 4 position, actually, is that it really rewards being able to get to this position. Calvin throwing this one really high. He'll get a skip down toward that fence line. But that line Calvin was throwing to the right there, that big open line, is generally what people will throw when they're going for that par 4 position. Mark throwing the forehand. That one's spiking a little bit into the ground, so not getting quite as much ground play as you would prefer. Leaving himself a little bit far away from where you would prefer. I'll keep saying that. Prefer. Now, if you'd prefer. Kyle throwing his Halo Destroyer. This was a fantastic shot, leaving himself a little far. So ideally you'd throw that a little bit more inside. Tyler ended up pretty short, unfortunately, for how great that shot was. Here we have Christian from just a little bit closer than Tyler. Finally connecting on one. Great long putt to make. Build some of that confidence. Mark from just I don't even know if this is closer than where Christian was. It looks about the same. Don't get big putted, Mark. Oh. Even at just a little low. Here we have Calvin from his drive. Ended up in a pretty decent spot, but not quite as far as you would like. I mean, obviously, under the pin is where you want to be. Oh, very confident putt. That's the confident miss. Unfortunately, still a miss. Here we have Kyle actually going deep in the basket. I forgot about that. Connecting for his 2. What a great birdie. You see how excited he was. He doesn't usually make birdies, you know. Rest of our card cleaning up their pars. Move on to hole 8. Hole 8, par 3, 440 feet. If hole 2 is not the hardest hole, then this is the hardest hole. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. That's not even true a little bit. No, this is just a really hard hole to get the birdie on. For most of the players, you'll probably see them try and get to this power pole here that the drone is just coming up on. And then the pin placement that we're going to is about 100 feet to the right. That's Mark's towel that he's picking up from this morning. He was warming up, starting on this hole, and then ended up at hole 1 and totally forgot his towel. He thought he left it in his car. Christian not really getting punished for how offline that was. He'll end up basically with a line at the basket, so ideally you'll end up at that power pole or around that corner. Kyle throwing a great line here. That's ideal. That right there. If you can do that every time, you would. There is a bit of a winter gap if you want to try and go for the birdie, throwing basically through the woods to the right of everything. Oh, Tyler just yanking that one off the line, ending up in that casual creek there. Really far from ideal. It's a very tough shot from there. Sorry about this creaking you can hear from the camera. That's the rocks. Excuse me for my voice. Calvin got in a great line on that as well. He'll actually end up a bit too far straight and in the woods up near hole 3's tee pad. Martin throwing a great line here. Once again, him and Kyle in the perfect spot. Great spot to attack. Tyler not taking any time. He just walked up. He just threw his shot. He's like, no, this is the bogey all day. Christian from pretty long, but this is just he's just got a straight shot, either a high backhand hyzer or a forehand straight at it. Opting for that backhand. I believe this is a logic that he's throwing here. He was talking about how he lost his straight putter, and so he just picked up a random disc from his backyard and was like, oh, I wonder how this flies. And that was this disc. So he was saying he was a big fan of leaving discs outside to get beat up. Mark from his drive. Great shot there. Probably about 10 or so feet. Kyle from just a little bit closer. Throwing the pig, which obviously not the right disc choice for this. I think the Invader would have been a better choice. Tyler literally didn't give me any chance. He was just like, nah, whatever, I'm going to get my bogey and get out of here. Calvin from long. And you know it's a bad position when he's opting for this spike hyzer from only about 60 or so feet. And he'll have a great look at his par. Christian good for his par. Par is not going to hurt you on this hole. Not going to hurt you at all. And in fact, this hole, nobody birdied. At least during round 1, there was no birdies. So Tyler carding the bogey. Everybody else getting the par. Assuming Mark makes this. That was another card on hole 3 that just whacked the tree. Mark good for his par, Tyler for his bogey. And that will conclude the front 9 of the Groundhog Grappler. Hope you all join us for the back 9. Thank you.